I never imagined I'd have to fight to keep my home from someone trying to steal it, least of all Maureen Caldwell, the president of our homeowners association. But that's exactly what happened after my appendix ruptured, landing me in the hospital for 3 weeks. It all began 6 months ago when I moved into Cedar Grove Estates, a serene suburban neighborhood with pristine lawns and rigid HOA rules. As an architect working from home, I'd saved for years to buy my dream house. The day I moved in, Maureen greeted me with a clipboard and a tight smile that never reached her eyes. "Welcome to Cedar Grove," she said, her tone implying I should feel privileged to be in her presence. "I'm Maureen Caldwell, president of the Homeowners Association. You'll need to study our bylaws immediately. We don't tolerate rule breakers here." She handed me a 3-inch binder of regulations, eyeing my moving boxes like a hawk searching for contraband. "Your mailbox is 2 inches taller than regulation. Replace it within 7 days, or you'll face a fine." I thanked her politely, promising to review the guidelines, which seemed to irk her. My neighbor Jack later told me Maureen thrived on conflict, wielding her HOA authority like a sledgehammer. "She's been president for 5 years because no one dares run against her," Jack said with a weary sigh. "Most folks just try to stay off her radar." For the first few months, I followed the rules and kept Maureen at arm's length. But everything changed when I planted a vegetable garden in my backyard. Per the HOA bylaws, gardens were allowed if not visible from the street. Mine was tucked behind my house, shielded by a decorative fence. Maureen, however, had other plans. She showed up one Saturday morning, face red with self-righteous fury. "Your garden violates Section 12, Paragraph 4, she declared smugly. "Vegetable gardens require approval from the landscaping committee, which I chair." I showed her the bylaws from her own binder, which stated gardens only needed to be out of street view. "I think there's a misunderstanding," I said calmly. "The rules don't mention committee approval for hidden gardens." Her eyes narrowed. "Well, maybe the bylaws need updating. Until then, remove it by Monday, or face a $50 daily fine." I refused to dismantle my garden. Maureen began cataloging every minor violation on my property: grass a 1/4 inch too tall, a trash can visible for 30 minutes post-collection, my garden hoses distracting color. Fines piled up, but I challenged each at monthly HOA meetings, citing the bylaws to the board, who often overturned Maureen's rulings. This enraged her. She wasn't used to being publicly outmaneuvered. After a heated meeting where the board unanimously sided with me on the garden issue, Maureen cornered me in the parking lot. "You think you're clever," she hissed, teeth gritted. "No one's ever made me look foolish in front of the board. You'll regret moving to Cedar Grove. I promise." I dismissed her threat as the rant of someone unaccustomed to losing. That was my mistake. Maureen Caldwell didn't make empty threats, as I'd soon learn. 2 weeks later, I woke at 3 a.m. with searing abdominal pain. I called 911 and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors found a ruptured appendix requiring emergency surgery. Complications led to sepsis, turning a routine procedure into a 3-week hospital stay, followed by 2 weeks of home recovery. While I was fighting for my life, Maureen was scheming to take my house. Jack later said he'd seen her entering my property multiple times, claiming she was checking on things and watering plants at my request. In truth, she was orchestrating a brazen fraud. On my first day back, still weak and moving gingerly, I found an official-looking notice taped to my door. It claimed my home had been seized by the HOA under abandoned property rules and was now under new ownership. The document cited a deed transfer from 2 weeks prior. I called the county clerk's office, heart pounding, only to learn a deed transfer was on file, showing I'd sold my home to Maureen Caldwell for $1. Their records claimed I'd appeared before a notary to sign it while I was unconscious in the ICU. "This is fraud," I told the clerk, voice trembling with fury and disbelief. I was in the hospital. I couldn't have signed anything. The clerk was sympathetic, but said I'd need to file a legal challenge. Meanwhile, Maureen had filed an eviction notice, giving me 72 hours to vacate her property. I called my cousin Laura, a real estate attorney. She came over immediately, reviewed the documents, and declared it a clear-cut case of fraud. "We need to act fast," she warned. "We'll get an emergency injunction to halt the eviction, then file criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and breaking and entering." Laura worked overnight to prepare our legal response while I gathered evidence. I obtained hospital records with timestamps proving I was incapacitated during the alleged signing. I also installed security cameras in case Maureen tried anything else. Sure enough, the next morning, she arrived with two unfamiliar men. "These gentlemen will help you move your belongings," she announced with a triumphant smirk. "I've generously extended your deadline to 5 p.m. today instead of the official eviction." I blocked the doorway. "Maureen, you forged a deed transfer while I was hospitalized. That's a felony. My attorney's filed for an emergency injunction and is preparing criminal charges." Her smile flickered, but she doubled down. "That's ridiculous. You signed the papers yourself." "I have a notarized document." "I was in the ICU, unconscious with sepsis," I shot back, holding up my hospital records. "And the security cameras I installed last night recorded you admitting you expect me to vacate a home you fraudulently claimed. Want to keep talking or wait for court?" The men exchanged uneasy glances. "We were told this was a routine eviction," one muttered. "We're not part of this." They backed off, leaving Maureen alone. Her face twisted with rage. "You think you're so smart," she snarled. "I have connections in this town you can't imagine. When I'm done, you'll wish you'd walked away." That day, the judge granted our emergency injunction, securing my right to stay while the case proceeded. Laura filed a criminal complaint with the district attorney's office, including hospital records, the forged deed, and security footage of Maureen's visit. The investigation moved swiftly. The notary whose stamp was on the deed had no record of the transaction, and a handwriting expert confirmed the signature wasn't mine. Bank records showed Maureen had bought furniture and appliances the day after acquiring my home, planning to move in. The clincher was Maureen's laptop, seized via warrant. It contained drafts of the deed transfer, searches for claiming abandoned property and forging signatures, and a floor plan of my house with notes on redecorating. 3 weeks after my hospital discharge, we faced Maureen in court. She arrived polished, in a crisp business suit, exuding confidence, as if her community status would shield her. She was mistaken. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the evidence with growing incredulity. When Maureen's attorney suggested a misunderstanding about my hospital stay, the judge cut him off. "Counsel, your client forged documents to claim a property while its owner was hospitalized with a life-threatening condition," she said, voice laced with anger. "There's no misunderstanding, only egregious criminal fraud." On the stand, Maureen's facade crumbled under Laura's questioning. She first claimed I'd signed the deed before my hospital stay, but when confronted with time-stamped medical records proving I was incapacitated, she pivoted. "He was going to sell it to me anyway," she insisted, voice rising. "We had an understanding. I just sped up the paperwork." "An understanding?" Laura pressed. "A verbal agreement with a man unconscious in the ICU? That's your testimony under oath." Maureen's composure shattered. "He didn't deserve that house," she shouted, leaping up as the judge banged her gavel. "He moved into our neighborhood and broke rules from day one. That garden was hideous. His mailbox violated regulations. Someone had to teach him." The courtroom went silent as Maureen realized her admission. Her attorney buried his face in his hands. The judge's disgust was palpable. "Miss Caldwell, this court finds you knowingly committed forgery, fraud, and attempted theft of real property, serious felonies in this state." She turned to the bailiff. "Take the defendant into custody." Maureen's eyes widened in shock. "You can't be serious," she gasped, recoiling as the bailiff approached with handcuffs. I'm the HOA president. I volunteer at the community center. People respect me. MS. Caldwell, the judge said icily, you tried to steal a man's home while he fought for his life. You'll be held without bail pending sentencing. Looking at me, the judge continued, Sir, I'm ordering the immediate nullification of the fraudulent deed transfer. Your property is yours, unequivocally. Ms. Caldwell will pay restitution for your legal fees. Turning to Maureen, now cuffed and trembling, the judge delivered her final verdict. Based on the severity of these charges and your lack of remorse, you face a minimum of 5 to 7 years in state prison and fines up to $75,000. Maureen's face drained of color, her protests about her reputation and community standing fading as the bailiff led her away. Cedar Grove Estates was quieter after that. The HOA board, chastened, revised its bylaws to limit presidential power. My garden thrived, my mailbox stood compliant, and my home remained mine. Maureen's empire of intimidation collapsed, her legacy a warning to others. I rebuilt my strength, knowing my home and my peace were secure, with no one daring to challenge me again.